Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a pretty fascinating attempt to answer an age-old question, and it's all inspired by a spirited debate between two modern thinkers.
And that question is, who is the greatest thinker of all time? I mean, this is a question that has echoed through the halls of academia for centuries.
Could it be Plato, the guy who basically founded the entire Western philosophical tradition?
Or maybe René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy.
Or what about Nietzsche, the prophet of a world without God?
Well, two philosophers tried to settle it in a pretty unique way, with a tournament bracket. Yeah, you heard me right. So let's dive into this format and see how they actually pitted these intellectual giants against each other.
All right, first up, round one, the founders. And our first matchup is an absolute classic. It's a clash that really defines a central conflict in philosophy: Descartes versus Hume.
So here is the tale of the tape. In one corner, we have the ultimate rationalist, and in the other, the archetypal empiricist. A real clash of styles.
Descartes was all about rationalism. He argued that we can know fundamental truths just by using our reason without ever leaving our armchair. Hume, though, argued for the exact opposite. He believed that all our knowledge comes from observation and our senses. If you can't see it, touch it, or measure it, you can't really know it. And this leads to Descartes' most famous phrase, "I think, therefore I am." This was his bedrock of certainty. See, his whole project was to doubt everything he possibly could, but he realized the one thing he couldn't doubt was the fact that he was doubting in the first place. But Hume came back with this absolutely devastating bit of skepticism. He pointed out that just because you've seen the sun rise every single day of your life, that doesn't logically prove it will rise tomorrow. This is his famous problem of induction, and it kind of brilliantly undermines the foundation of all science. So who moves on? In the source debate, it's Descartes. And here's why. While Hume asks these incredible questions, he basically admits that his own philosophy can't answer them. And that's seen as a huge flaw. I mean, if your worldview leads to a skepticism so deep it can't even justify its own conclusions, well, you've kind of created a philosophical dead end. Okay, let's jump forward to the modern era and see how these debates play out today. For round two, we have a match between Peter Singer and Richard Dawkins. This is a fascinating matchup. It pits one of the world's most influential, living, ethical philosophers against probably its most famous atheist scientist. Now, Singer is famous for forcing us to confront really uncomfortable truths. His drowning child analogy asks, look, if you would ruin your expensive shoes to save a drowning child in a pond, why wouldn't you donate that same amount of money to save a child's life across the globe? He applied that same radical consistency to animal rights in his book Animal Liberation, arguing that it's the capacity to feel pain, not intelligence, that gives a being moral consideration. But, as the source points out, this leads to a key criticism of Singer, his hardcore utilitarianism, the idea that the best action is the one that creates the most good for the most people. It leads to conclusions that many find, frankly, repugnant. For instance, he entertains the idea of euthanizing severely disabled infants if the resources saved could produce more overall happiness somewhere else, and for a lot of people, that's just a bridge too far. So who takes this one? It's Singer, and this is the deciding factor. While Dawkins is hugely influential, he's a scientist who engages with philosophy. Singer, on the other hand, is a philosopher through and through, so he wins for his profound and dedicated contribution to the field of ethics itself. All right, now for the heavyweights of meaning and existence. Round 3, Friedrich Nietzsche versus Soren Kierkegaard. Both of these thinkers were grappling with despair, with the big question of how to live a meaningful life. But boy, did they arrive at radically different conclusions. For Nietzsche, his most famous proclamation, "God is dead and we have killed him," wasn't some triumphant cry of victory. Not at all. It was a diagnosis of a profound crisis for humanity. He thought that with religion's decline, we've lost our source of universal values. So his solution? We have to become creators ourselves, creating new values and making life itself a work of art. So the winner of this matchup is Nietzsche. Now, don't get me wrong, Kierkegaard, the founder of Christian existentialism, is an absolute giant. But in this head-to-head, Nietzsche's immense influence on modern thought and his piercing relevance in our secular world, that gives him the edge. So after going through these rounds, you have to wonder what criteria were actually being used to judge these thinkers. It's clearly not as simple as just deciding who was right.
The debate in the source material really shows it's a complex mix of things. It's about influence. How much did they shape the thinkers who came after them? Originality. Were they asking questions nobody else was? Real-world impact. Did their ideas actually change the way we live? And finally, a kind of contemporary resonance. Whose work still feels urgent and speaks to the challenges we face today? So the goal here isn't really just to crown a single winner. It's to make us think about how we even define philosophical greatness in the first place. Does influence matter more than originality? Does real-world impact matter more than intellectual purity? So I'll leave you with this. Based on what we've seen, and based on what matters most to you, who would be your champion?